it's not our fault. It's not men's fault. It's not even the women's fault what was done to us. But it is our responsibility to attend to our healing. It is our responsibility to, like, hey, you know what? Let me advocate for others. It is our responsibility. Let me hold my state reps. Let me hold my city councilmen. Let me hold certain individuals accountable to these unjust laws, right? And to, like, hey, you know what? We need to reframe. Let me hold media accountable. Let me hold these stars and celebrities. Let me hold myself. Let me hold my church members. Let me hold my brothers and sisters in the mosque accountable so that we can all change these narratives.
Welcome to the Upfront Podcast, where healing meets real talk on Black love. We're diving into why so many driven, self-aware singles are still searching for the one. From dating apps to deep therapy, emotional blocks to generational wisdom, we're bringing it all up front. You'll hear from psychologists, married couples, divorcees, influencers, all with no filters. If you're ready to heal first so you can love forever, this is your space. Let's get up front. All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Upfront Podcast. I'm your host, John Graham, CEO and founder of Upfront Marital Technologies Incorporated. And today I have a dynamic brother who I'm excited about this conversation to have and to bring you for many reasons. But I'll first start by saying that this brother is the founder of Transform and Thrive Solutions. It is a company focused on transformational health and wellness. He is recognized as a professional specializing in trauma, healing, holistic wellness, and empowering both individuals and communities to achieve lasting growth. His expertise spans counseling, coaching, facilitation, and public speaking, where he employs evidence-based techniques combined with a compassionate, strengths-based, and solution-focused approach to inspire personal and collective transformation. And this brother does so much more than everything I just read, but I'd love for y'all to welcome Brother E. Bernard Alexander, sir.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is such an
Of course.
honor and a pleasure. Yes,
Man,
sir.
look, I gotta give some applause to that, man. Some cheering,
Yes,
some
sir.
clapping. Welcome to the show, man. We're gonna make you feel like a superstar today, brother. So look, man, how are you in this moment, brother? How are you?
Man, you know what? I am great. I am great. I am blessed. Yeah, you know what? These last couple of weeks have been a whirlwind. So it's like a good tired, right? It's a good, it's a great feeling to be
Sure.
like, hey, you know what? I'm working hard, and more importantly, I'm making impact, right? So
I
yeah.
love it. That's what it is, man. So look, I read a bit of your background. I think I just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the work that you're doing in the community, especially for Black men.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah. So there's a father, and I will say this. I'm gonna lead off with this, right? I'm a believer. I'm a Torah observant, following believer, right? So I'm going to talk about Abba, talk about Yah, like throughout this whole time, right? So I give all credit
Mm-hmm.
to the Most High, right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah. So, but I really felt led to do this work because, one, first of all, I had my own counseling experience, right? And my own counseling experience, I was very hesitant, but I was very open. I was very glad that I was open, and it really like opened my mind to so much possibilities. And I was like, hey, you know what? I have such a great experience in this. Man, I want to help others have great experiences, right? So I really went into this work. I really went into the education, got the training, and I really saw that there's a need for me to really focus on men and Black men in particular, right? Because we really need this experience. We really need to have safe spaces and safe people and safe individuals that we could talk to and that can really help, right? So that really led me to go into this work, and to like really give back. I'm a firm believer in what I call redemptive transformation, right? So it's not me just getting healed, it's me getting the healing and everything that I need, but it has to give back. It has to be a reciprocity, right? So I hope that answered your question.
Of course. No, no, no.
Yes,
And
sir.
there's a lot that we need to unpack there as well. And I love that that your academic training, right,
Hmm.
and your clinical work has led you to centering Black men because I look, we got a lot to heal through.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I think that this is an important conversation because for many reasons, but particularly when it comes to upfront, as we were building, a couple things would happen. One, we would get sisters who are like, yes, please sign me up, right? Healing
Hmm.
before connection, absolutely. 30-day healing journey required before I get introduced to anybody. Yes, please. But how are you going to get the brothers to sign up for that, right? Which then leads to this conversation or an assumption of conversation that I'd love for you to provide or shed some light on, that brothers are averse to healing or even the word healing, right? Or
Mm,
therapy
mm.
or right. What have you seen in your experience as far as Black men being open to and then ultimately seeking out and participating in healing experiences or therapy experiences?
Yeah, good question. Great question. And one of the things I'm really happy to see and happy to report, there are more and more that's like, hey, you know what? I can't take and deal with the status quo anymore. I can't take these narratives that's been pushed on me anymore. I can't take like, just trying to be this lone wolf, trying to, attend to my own wounds in silos and in the dark. Like, yeah, something different has to be done. And really, and I want to give a lot of credit to, like, especially like the younger generations, the millennials, the generational generation Z, right? Because they're like, man, you know what? Nah, we got to name this. We got to address this. I can't keep carrying this, right? And I think like some of us older ones are learning from their example and their transparency, and it's like, you know what, man, I've been holding this for like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years in some cases and beyond, right? I'm holding it. Like
Mm.
one of the things that I'm so fortunate to do, I partner up with the organization Black Men Heal, and I'm able to host a space, King's Corner, and we just had an older gentleman, right? He's in his late 60s, early 70s, talking about how the trauma that he grew up with, the environmental trauma that impacted him, it just really, it really warped his how he saw relationships, and could, on to this day. And this is an older gentleman who is like, you know what, he's taken out his trauma, he's taken out his anger, he's taken out all of the things that he was not able to effectively address and deal with in his life. He's taking it out on these relationships. And this is an older gentleman who's living like this for like 50 years, 50 plus years, right? So, so it's important for individuals like myself. It's important for the individuals who come and seek help. You know what? Regardless of how I think about therapy, right? At the end of the day, the result is I want to win. Part of winning is having a healthy self, healthy relationships, so that we can have healthy families, so that we can have healthy communities. So if therapy is what I need to do in order to win, I'm gonna do that. Talking to a
Mhm.
trusted, mature friend or family member, I'm gonna do that. Right? Exposing my secrets so that it no longer keep me sick, I'm going to do that, because at the end of the day, it's about winning. And how can we win? And the beautiful thing is, like I said, with the redemptive transformation, it's a form of winning, whereas though I win, we all can win. Right. And that's part of the reason why, like, I target men. And it's not to separate from the sisters. It's not to say, hey, but it is to say that men, we are the foundation. We are foundational. So if and anybody that deals with construction, any type of housing, if the foundation is weak, the whole building is going to collapse. right? If the foundation, I mean, it's to the degree that if you have a property, and I don't claim to be a real estate expert, and expert in
Sure.
architecture and all that, right? But I do have a basic understanding. And if you got cracks in your ceilings, cracks in the roof, the house, okay, it's still livable. But if there's cracks in the foundation, the building is condemned, right? And we as men, we're the foundation. So it's important that we learn to heal. It's important that we learn to love. It's important that we learn to get better, because then, man, our women are going to get better, our children going to get better, our community is going to get better, and so on and so on. So it's very much important.
Beautifully stated. Gosh, there's even more to unpack now. So let me take it from this angle. We hear from a lot of sisters that, when we ask, what is it that you're looking for? Like, tell me your criteria and your ideal partner and your husband to be, right? And I'd say overwhelmingly what comes up is a brother who is emotionally available.
Mm, mm,
And so when we hear this, my response has been, okay, I don't think that's an unreasonable ask, but what I would ask is, when have Black men been given space and or training and guidance on how to
mm,
be emotionally available?
mm,
So from that perspective, I'd love to give, some space to not only the conditions that have created brothers who are um, in positions now, and you talk about a brother who's in his 60s recognizing that he needs help, right? That he needed to have that trusted space and guide through a healing journey. But
mhm,
talk to me about some of the conditions that have been created for Black men to not be
mm.
emotionally available. So I think that people can get some perspective on what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and this came up. We just had again with King's Corner, we just had a great, awesome conversation, and we was talking about this, especially like in the context of Father's Day, and it just really opened up a lot, right? But I mean, historically, and I say this because I believe like it's important for us to have explanation, not for to weaponize it, not for it to be an excuse, but it's for us to understand and really lean in, and how can we really holistically heal, right? So especially us as Black men here in America, historically, like, and shout out to Dr. Joy DeGroy with the her book post slave syndrome, right?
Post
Post
traumatic
traumatic
slave syndrome,
slave syndrome,
indeed.
right?
Yes, yes. She's a friend and a mentor.
Awesome, awesome,
Yeah,
awesome, awesome. Yeah. Well, tell her like, look, I'm a huge fan.
I, I will make sure I do this. She'll be on the program soon, actually. So yes, I will make sure to do that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, we read her books in these streets, right?
good, good.
Yeah. Yeah. And but you gotta talk about how Black men we were breeders. We were used as breeders, right? We were used as objects, and we have been objectified and villainized and demonized in many respects. So now we was used as breeders, then we became used as villains, then we became used as narratives that's used to make others rich, to push an agenda upon us. And in many ways we have internalized that, right? And again, this is offering no excuse, but we need to understand what has been systematically done to us in order for us to systematically tear that apart and to confront that, right? So we got to start dealing with our healing. Even like one of the things, man, you know what? Most present day social work and a lot of social programs is based off the 1965 Moynihan report, right? And in this report, he talked about that, hey, you know what? Families can do well, and I'm summarizing, and I encourage everybody go read it for yourself, right? That families do well without the men. They don't necessarily need the men, right? In the household to do well. So we're going to offer all these supports. We're going to offer all these helps to families without the men. Well, what do we see? right? Then we start to see like, where's the, all right, well, you can't have fathers in the home in order for me to get these monies. And matter of fact, y'all ain't no good anyway because you're not in the homes. And then it's the pushing of these narratives, and it's a snowball effect where it becomes a whole philosophy. It's become a whole creature, a whole beast that we really have to dismantle. Right. One of the things that came to mind, it's an old movie. What's that movie? I believe the title was Claudine, right? With
Mm-hmm.
James Earl Jones and
And Cicely Tyson, I believe. Or
was it Sister?
no, it
No,
was Diane Carroll.
Diane Carroll, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember like yo, this man, he's willing to be a father to these kids. He's willing to come into their lives, but every time when a social worker came, he had to run out the door. He had to hide, right? And we have built a ethos around like this type of mentality, right? Because we benefit, well, some can benefit from it, and we see that present day. We see that within the family court system, right? Whereas though the courts make money. I'm gonna talk about here in Pennsylvania, here in Philadelphia, right? The courts make money from penalizing the fathers. So there is an incentives to target specifically men of color, black men, right? And we have to unpack these things. Again, it's not to one of the things that I've come to believe is it's not our fault. It's not men's fault. It's not even the women's fault what was done to us, but it is our responsibility to attend to our healing. It is our responsibility to like, hey, you know what? Let me advocate for others. It is our responsibility. Hey, let me hold my state reps. Let me hold my city councilmen. Let me hold certain individuals accountable to these unjust laws, right? And to like, hey, you know what? We need to reframe. We really and let me hold media accountable. Let me hold these stars and celebrities. Let me hold myself. Let me hold my church members. Let me hold my brothers and sisters in the mosque accountable so that we can all change these narratives, right? Because it's false. And one of the issues, I'm really seeing men who do, who also a part of it too, is really creating not only information and knowledge, but really creating these safe spaces, right? And again, it's not to knock the women, it's not to diss the women, because all of us have drunk the Kool Aid, right? And all of
Mm.
us got to stop drinking the Kool Aid, but then you have to be a safe space, right? One of the things, I'm gonna say this story, and I don't, I hope not to offend anybody, because and this is it's such a loaded question, right? And it's so multi-dimensional, right? And multi headed, I guess, for lack of better words, that we gotta approach it from like multiple angles, right? But I remember years ago, and I was in a different space. I was young and dumb at the time. I was, I was young, like man, late teens, early 20s, and I'm in college, right? I was at Temple University, TU, to all my TU alumni, right?
Shouts
So
out to Temple.
yeah, yeah, shout out, right? Um,
North. North
yeah, yeah,
Philly. Yeah, let's
North
go.
with an F,
North with an
right?
F, baby.
Yes. So, but I remember, and I was talking to my pop, right? I was talking to my dad, and I'm like, yo, where are the queens at? Where the real women at? Why am I seeing all these hoes and blah blah blah, right? And again, forgive me, I was young and dumb, so forgive my verbiage, right? Um, so and my pop, he listened to me, and then after I finished my tirade, he said, if you want a queen, you have to be a king, right? So the challenge is put on us, right? So to kind of go back to what you stated earlier, when the sisters asked that question, the question I have, I'm gonna answer it with the question: what healing work are you doing on you? Right? What healing work are you doing on
Ooh,
you?
buddy.
Right? And then I pose that challenge also to the kings. If you want a
Uh-huh.
queen, or if you want a safe space, if you want to be able to open yourself up and not feel put down, not feel minimized, what healing work are you doing on you? Right? And I
The, gems.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is jewelry, folks.
Yeah.
Jewelry. He is providing for you. And look, you're absolutely right. Like attracts like. You can't want a queen and
Yeah.
be a pauper.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be out here representing what it is you want to attract. But that's great perspective. And I want to go back to a couple of things. One, the Monahan report, which I encourage anyone to read because it is a public government document that
Yep.
was leveraged to shape policy,
Yep.
specifically. And I'm asked a lot, right? When I talk about our abysmal marital rate, right? We are currently hovering around 30% marital rate in the Black
Mm,
community,
mm,
the lowest marital rate of any racial group in this country.
mm,
The the fact that we once were the most married racial group in the country at
mm,
over
mm,
85% between the periods
mm.
of Reconstruction, 1866 to 1978, you say, well, how is it that in the span of 50 or so years, we have gone to the least married? And so the Monahan report will answer a lot of those questions, but at highest level, we had to deal with things like the war on crime, the war on
Mhm.
poverty, and the war on drugs, which all systematically removed Black men from households,
Yep.
right, and
Yep.
put us into the prison industrial complex. But then add on top of that, you also had the removal of vocational training and the trades, right? So the burgeoning group of Black men who would be able to sustain an income by their own hands was virtually eradicated. Then you also have the social engineering of this belief that you can have it all and do everything yourself without a man, right? Particularly focusing on women, white women first, right? Sisters adopting this belief that I don't need a man and I can do bad all by myself because they were seeing what white women were doing fine, but not accounting for the removal of Black men at the same time. Then you have the welfare state, the welfare programs and policies that forbade you from having a man in the house, right? So you take all of this, and I think something you also said, Black men have always been the number one threat to power dominant group men, right?
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
is throughout human society, human civilization. Anytime you have a dominant group that seeks to control or does own and control resources, they first have to mitigate the highest risk or threat, which is usually the subordinate group male.
Yeah.
So Black men have been identified as that threat to dominant group power status. Therefore, we are vilified. As you said, we were studded out when they couldn't import Africans any longer to the country. And so they had to breed, which made us studs. And I don't think, right, even for those who are aware of that concept, if you're aware of your history, and you and I are both Black African studies majors, two very
Mhm.
prestigious schools
Yeah.
for that practice. But when you understand, okay, yes, we were studded out, women and sisters were bred, right? But you don't think about the downstream impacts generationally and how we view each other in a hypersexualized manner, right? And so when you think about how pervasive hypersexualization is of both Black men and Black women, it's not by accident that encoded epigenetically is for us to view each other as nothing more than sex objects,
Yes, sir. Yep.
right? Typically for the benefit and production of other assets for the
Yes, sir.
dominant class. Now today it's not just for, right, it's not from an enslavement standpoint, but more so from a hyperconsumption standpoint or
But
low
is it?
cost
But
labor
is it?
standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was
Oh
gonna
yeah,
say,
no,
because
that's
we
the other
talk
part of
about the
it.
prisons. Yep. Yep.
Listen, that's the low cost labor aspect that is still very much alive, right?
Mhm.
The acceptable or the legally protected form of slavery today. So I say all these things to say that it's not as simple as these gender war debates that we see on social, right? About what are you bringing to the table, and and I can provide this lifestyle by myself. Why do I need you? It's bigger than that,
Yeah.
and I think
Way
you're
bigger.
touching on some of those things, man. So I appreciate you for that. So let me switch gears a little bit. You're doing this good work with the brothers, and you're seeing clear examples of a need for healing.
Yeah.
Um, which yes and yes more, please.
Yeah.
But I want to ask also, what do you think? What do you think is sort of that goal or that destination for the brothers who are entering into this healing journey, right? Especially when it comes to, obviously it should be for self improvement, for really pushing through your past traumas to be a better version of self. But talk to me in terms of what you're seeing as it relates to relationships, right? Because I got to believe that if these brothers um, aren't getting through that work and that those past traumas, whether environmental, relationship, childhood, whatever the case may be, then they can't be showing up as great partners, right?
Mm,
So
mhm,
what are you seeing in that regard as you're helping these brothers navigate these healing journeys? How is that impacting their perspective on relationship or even the quality of their relationships if they're already in one?
mm. Yeah, great question. Great question. Great question. And you know what? I'm mad because the exact scripture is drawing a blank. Um, there's a scripture in the Old Testament, and it talks about where the Most High, where He says, I will take your heart of stone, your stony heart, and give you a heart of flesh. Right. And as you was talking, it just made me think of that, and a lot of us, man, like we need a heart replacement, right? A
Oof.
lot of us, we grew up in these tough, rough environments, or, a lot of it is based off of survival, right? We had to survive. The women had to survive, so they have stony hearts. All of us had to survive. So I do want to preface that my answer with that, we got to turn back to the Most High. We have to turn back into the Most High, right? That's key. That's vital. Um, Now with that, yeah, with that, yeah, with that, like, yo, like, there's so much work that's involved, man. We really have to be intentional, right? We really have to, and I don't even know if I'm answering your question because, like,
Now we'll
I
get
just
there.
feel, yeah, man, like, I just feel like a pivot, like we have to really be intentional about becoming healed, about becoming whole, about it's not just impacting me. It's not only just impacting my relationships, it's impacting my quality of life. It's impacting, even like and I don't want to get too far into the weeds. We can look, disconnect that we feel spiritually, the disconnect that we feel within our own bodies as far as like biomedical issues. All of this is tied in. All of it is interrelated and interconnected, right? So
Mhm.
in order for us to like really heal relationships, to heal medically, to heal even within the land, to heal politically, to heal in all these different areas, we really have to start with that man, with that person in the mirror, right? We really have to do the work, as Jung called like the shadow work. We really have to do like in the biblical context, go on the backside of the mountain, right? We really have to do this time, and we really have to invest in ourselves with not in a not well, ideally, if you're single, like doing that work on you before you get with somebody, right?
Mhm.
If you're married or if you're in a long-term relationship, really carving out space and time to like really attend to yourself and to like really do the healing work that is necessary for you so that we can show up whole, right? And again, I hope this is answering your question. Like, man, we really have to become whole people, right? We really have to, and it's crazy because especially black men, we have to give ourselves permission to be a whole person, right? To be a living, breathing person. Because we was so many times, man, we was either like how you said, we was studded, right? We was breeders, we was the buck. Or so many times that, okay, well, you could be the athlete, or you could be the rapper, or you could be the gangster, right? Or you could be,
Mhm.
as long as you're this hyper masculine, hypersexual, hyper individual, right? But hyper, like a lot of times we think it just mean like, oh man, I'm leading with my chest and bravado. But hyper is like, yo, I'm super sensitive to everything, right? And when, and
Mhm.
you know what? And shout out to was that Deshaun Harris? uh, um, he put a image in my mind, right? He used Crayola crowns, right? And a lot of times, you know how like when you go to Applebee's or the restaurant, they give you like a 4 box like crowns, right? Or maybe an 8 box, a 8 count. But Crayola crowns, they have like what, over 200? I think they got like thousands of colors now, right? Where our emotions and feelings are the same way, right? We have thousands of emotions, but us as men, us as black men, were only taught, trained,
Given the 4 count.
conditioned with the 4 count, right?
Right.
And then when we show up because I'm embarrassed, it looked like anger. We wonder why. Or when it shows up, like when you know what, maybe my pocket's a little low, and sister, you make more money than me, and and I feel some type of way. So the only way I know how to express that is through anger or it's through dominance. So now I got to try to dominate you, or now I got to try to have all these notches in my belt to kind of make up for my lack of language.
Mm. I, so, bruh.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Y'all, this is a masterclass. I want to say one thing. There's a word you used that I think gets misconstrued a lot, and that's masculinity.
Mm.
If you could, what is masculinity? And what is the biggest misconception of masculinity, especially for black men?
Mm. Man, great question. I'm glad you asked that, right? First of all, masculinity is nothing without Abba. It's nothing without Father. It's nothing without the Most High, right? So I challenge all of us, like, yo, what does it mean to be masculine as Yah created us, right? As the Most High created us, right? Because we look in Genesis 1 and 2, he created us for a specific role and for a specific purpose. Then he created a helpmeet, out of the man, right? From the side of the man, as a helpmeet, not as my slave, not as my subservient, not as a notch in my belt, but as my helpmate, my helpmeet, right? So that we can do this work that the Most High created us for together, right? And then we can multiply, be fruitful and multiply, right? That not just as far as children, but as far as the work that we do, as far as well as children, and everything that spurns from that we create, right? So that's one. Masculine is like, yo, being your full self, showing up as your full self. Like there's if part of you, and part of that, you know what, man, my sons, I have 2 sons, and they used to box, right? When they was training boxing, one of the things, like, I love the camaraderie, I love the way men talk, like when men can just be men, right? There's a certain talk, like, it's not disrespectful, it's not like, let me try to outdo you. It's like, nah, it's a level of realness, like, yo, this is real rap, real talk. And I think a lot of us, like, we're not, we have to give ourselves permission, like, no, I'm gonna be my real self, I'm gonna show up as my full authentic self. Sometimes that look like, yo, I gotta try to, max out at 250 pounds on the bench, and then at the same time it looked like, mom not here, so let me do my daughter's hair, let me pull it up in a puff tail, a ponytail, right? Then it looked like, hey, you know what, sometimes I gotta put you in your place, right? But I don't need to curse at you. I don't need to try to stand over top of you. But I can very silently, very meekly, very confidently let you know, like, nah, we ain't having that here. And it's also part of masculinity is able to verbalize who you are, what you want, what you need, and not relying on just your hands and your fists, not relying on your penis, right? Not relying on you think that your mere intellect, but it's relying on all of this as Yah has created me, right? So that's my picture of masculinity. Yeah, that's how I view
Excellent.
masculinity. Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. And the
And I do want to
oh, go
say
ahead.
this real quick, right? I want to say this real
Please.
quick. And one thing, like, I remember, and it's not to dishonor It's not to dishonor. I remember one time my pop, shortly before he passed away, him and I got into a conversation, right? And I told him about this poem that my younger sister, who had passed away some years prior to that, she had wrote me a poem, and I saw the poem, right? And I read the poem, and I cried. I cried. And my pop, he was like, he heard me when I told him the story. He was like, "Yeah, you was always emotional." Right. And I was like, "Hey, pop, now,
Mm.
again, no dishonor to my pop. My pop grew up from a drill sergeant. My grandfather was a drill sergeant. My parents before them, they was in the, my grandparents before them, they was in the military. And so there was a certain mindset that was passed down and I said to him, I was like, "Pop, that's part of our problem." Right. Like, we think as men, like we got to be hard through everything all the time. Well, if you hard and rigid all the time, you're going to break. Eventually you're going to break. But if we learn to be strong, but strong but flexible, and I'm about to quote Jackie Chan from Rush Hour 2, right? He talked about bamboo, strong but flexible, right? So palm trees, they're able to withstand storms because they're fluid, right?
I can
But
bend. Yeah.
they can bend. They're not rigid. And us as men, like, we feel as though we got to be rigid. Nah, we got to be like palm trees. We got to be like bamboo. We got to be strong, very capable, very useful. Trust me, I can use hands if I need to, right? But you know what? But that's not the only tool that I have in my toolbox, right? That's not the only way that I can show up. So us as men, like, really learning to show up with strength, with honor, with dignity, with integrity in multiple ways, multiple
Absolutely.
areas.
That's a fantastic addition to the point. I think masculinity and its misconceptions you've identified, but I also think you hear this term toxic masculinity, which
Mm,
I don't
mm,
believe in. I think that
mm.
people either have healthy expressions of who they are or not, right? I don't assign that to gender because there's shitty people on both sides and all
Yes,
things in
sir.
between, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that you touched on, and I love that you shared that moment, that you had with your father, and I value that. I appreciate that vulnerability as well. Um, that that there's this notion that vulnerability and being accessible emotionally and being able to articulate those emotions is a sign of weakness, right? And
Mm,
I often hear that from our foreparents, right? That is associated with our foreparents, and then you start to think about, okay, well, what world did they grow up in, or
yes.
what
Yeah.
shaped them and their experience? And you think about it, like, man, they didn't have time to feel, right?
Yeah.
Because they literally
Yeah.
had threats that were present daily, like
Yeah.
them leaving their house, and
Yeah.
just by virtue of being and looking the way they did, um, was a risk every day, right? And so that notion of tapping into emotionality, unfortunately for our foreparents, didn't happen until they were breaking, or those around them had to
Mhm.
suffer the trapped emotions that they couldn't articulate in the form of physicality or drinking or drugs to cope, right? So I honor and I understand that. I think, how do we now get our sisters to change their perspective on masculinity, right? Because what we can't disconnect is that, excuse me, that there's been a concerted effort to ruin the perception of black men in the eyes and the experience of black women. Not discounting black women's experiences with black men. Don't get me wrong. Yes, a lot of brothers have not shown up well. But how do we start to change that perception of what healthy masculinity in as black men looks like for our sisters?
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I agree with you with the toxic masculinity, and I really think, like, it's been over politicized, right? And really, like, kind of shoved and crammed down our throats again to serve an agenda, right? But I do believe that there is a form of toxic masculinity when it's just like, hey, I gotta lead with my penis, or I gotta make sure that I'm dominating you, or make sure, like, you know what, I gotta make sure that I'm winning, at all costs. And that's toxic, and that's toxic in a sense, and it doesn't matter. That's just toxic humanity. Period. Doesn't matter if we're talking about masculinity or femininity, right? That's just toxic, period. So let's address the toxicity and become healed and whole, right? Also, to kind of answer your question, man, I think like we got to kind of bring in relativity, right? Like, yeah, during certain time periods, and you can look at history. You can look at like industrial age versus like agricultural age. Look at bronze age. Look at now we're in like a technical age, right? So we gotta bring in relativity, right? So a lot of times masculinity was viewed for how can you protect and provide, right? And
Absolutely.
yes, our ancestors, they had a lot more physical threats. They had a lot more physicalities that they had to address and deal with during a time period, but we have to deal with it now in a it's more nuanced, right? It's more microaggressions. It's more like, it's more like agenda based, right? Because whereas though, like, now, like, if we show up in spaces that's viewed as toxic masculinity, oh man, you know what, I'm going to lead this social media campaign which is going to impact your may impact your finances, or may impact you in this way, or we're going to cancel you. We're going to cancel you, and cancel culture going to show up in multiple ways. And now we're going to do like these smear tactics. So while though there may not be the physical threats, as physical threats that our ancestors and forefathers may have dealt with, but that does not mean that we don't deal with constant bombardment of threats, right? And it's kind of, in many ways, it may be even escalated and exacerbated with the fact that with social media, with technology, with things are more instantaneous, right? So I think that we have to bring that into the conversation and deal with those aspects as well. But I would say to women, like, one again, I gotta go back. You gotta bring in the Most High, right? To really, we gotta get realigned and really know the original intent, the original design, what a masculinity originally meant, what femininity originally meant, right, and was supposed to mean, right? But then I would say again, I would say to the sisters, like, one, learn to like really embrace your femininity, right? Don't buy into the notion that, hey, you know what, I can do bad all by myself, I don't need no man, or this and that. Like, no, you know what, if your situation calls for, like, hey, there's no man, or there's no dominant or contributing male presence, okay, I have to hold this down, but I'm not trying to take the place of a father, right? Or that, right? But with that, man, can I introduce like what is holistic masculinity? What is healthy masculinity? Right? And I think too many times we focus on what things are not. How about let's focus on what things are? What does healthy masculinity look like? What does it look like for a man to be protector, provider, priest, prophet of his own home, but he doesn't view his wife, if his wife make more money than him, he doesn't view that as a threat, and she doesn't weaponize that as a threat, right? What would it look like? Man, there was a couple in a former life. I was a barber, right? And I had this. It was this couple. It was this brother that I was cutting his hair. I forget their names at this time, so I apologize. But this brother and this dude, like, if you see me in person, I'm 6'2", about 250 pounds, right? This dude had me about. He had about an inch on me and about 30 pounds on me, right? 30, 40 pounds, right? But him and his wife, he worked in a good corporate job, quote unquote good job, had a high level position. His wife was taking care of their son and taking care of the home and the family. Right. His wife, now she had undergrad degrees, right? Degree. So she wanted to go back to school, get higher level education, right? And started working again. So the husband was like, hey, okay, so they worked together. He quit his job so that he could take care of the home, take care of the family while she went to school, right? Then she went to school, and he, again, this why I brought up his weight and his size. So they decided together to downsize. This big behind, grown behind man, like, almost 300 pounds, started riding a bike so they can downsize and work together. So that's when I'm saying all that to say is healthy, holistic masculinity is a man who shows up as his full, living, breathing self as the Most High originally intended, and is best seen or is very much highlighted when it's partnered up with healthy, holistic femininity that works together, that works in harmony, that works as help meets in order to like really build up healthy families, and then really to like, hey, you know what, we got microaggressions, we got, in many respects the world coming against us, man, we gonna be back to back doing this together as partners.
Oh, buddy. Man, that's a whole word. There's a whole word. I love the notion of interdependence
Yeah.
rather than independence. Not only that, um, you mentioned the brother doing what needed to be done to support the dreams, aspirations, and ultimately the viability of his household by taking a back seat, not a back seat, but taking a different role, right,
Yeah.
than traditional works. And I think throughout these conversations that we have as part of Upfront, it's not about this it's fitting into a mold or a model, right?
Hmm.
Every household, every relationship is different.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
works for you is what works for
Yes.
you, but you have to find that thing that works for
Yes.
you and honor that,
Yes.
right? As long as both people are being honored and feel respected and empowered and embraced in that journey. But there's another thing, and I wanted to share just really quick. I'll read a stat.
Hmm.
When it comes to college degree attainment, Black women earn a significantly greater share of degrees amongst Black students. Recent data shows that Black women receive 64.1% of bachelor's degrees, 71.5% of master's degrees, and 65.9% of doctoral, medical, and dental degrees awarded to Black students. And that is, sourced from a couple of different locations. It's AAUW, as well as the report for Black women experiences regarding college choice, so the Century Foundation. But point being, when we talk about educational outcomes over the past 50 years, Black women have outpaced Black men significantly. I think only about 40% of Black men are getting college degrees at this point, right? Or completing a
Hmm.
degree.
Hmm.
So just by virtue of that increase in college degree attainment in the societies that we're in today, which are more knowledge worker based and now more technologically advanced environments, there's going to be a disparity in the salary income potential, right? Just by virtue of you not having the education that gets you into the door for the job, not speaking to capability. My point in bringing that up is a lot of times we hear sisters seeking a man who's making what they make or more, right? It's a hypergamous approach to dating. I want what you have, if not more. They're seeing a challenge with that. So when you have a sister that makes 100K or more, when we look at the brothers that are available in the population, by that I mean single, hetero, never
Hmm.
been married, no kids, and not incarcerated. We're
Hmm.
talking about Black men that make 100K. You're talking about
Hmm.
10% of the available
Yeah,
population,
if that.
right? And when we start
Yeah.
to talk about 200, 250K or more, which a
Uh,
lot of sisters are making in these corporate roles, you're talking about less than 1% of the Black male population.
wow. Wow.
So we then start to talk about, well, let's really examine the criteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that I hear that's what you want, but is that what you need?
Mm,
Secondly,
mm,
is it realistic to suggest that you're going to find the 0.1% man that every other sister like you is looking for and
Mm,
not have to share him. That's a whole nother conversation, right? And I have no dog in that fight. But being married for 16 years at this point, and my wife being a chief home executive, she handles everything on the house front. Doesn't work outside the house, but her work is deep.
mhm,
She always wanted to be a housewife, right? That she'll tell you straight up. Her aspiration was to be a housewife.
yeah,
I don't know that there's an aspiration like that. In fact, many of the conversations we've had, when asked if a brother made enough money to cover you, your lifestyle, and all expenses, would you quit your job? And overwhelmingly, the answer was no.
mm,
Some were
yeah,
like, please, today, take me. I want to
Yeah.
retire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the aspiration was no. I mean, the answer was no to that. So you mentioned healthy and holistic femininity, healthy
mhm,
and holistic masculinity, which I love. And I will be incorporating those
yeah,
terms
yeah.
on license from you, my good brother. That healthy and holistic humanity is really what we need. But as we're talking about honoring the difference in our genders and what
Mhm,
we bring to the equation here, that healthy and holistic part is huge. Where I wanted to go next was, and really it's a question of what does a healed or healing Black man look like or show up like in a community and in fatherhood. But you touched on that a bit. What I'm wanting from a practical standpoint now is really, what are some practices that you recommend for Black men beginning their healing journey? Right, they haven't started it yet. They're just on the fence now about starting, and they're like, you know what, I need to make some changes. What are 2 to 3 practices that you would recommend for Black men on that path?
Yeah. Great question. Great question. And I do want to comment real quick. And thank you for bringing up those numbers. Right. Yeah.
Of course.
It's so important to have perspective. Um, as you were sharing that information, it just made me think of what was that old TV show, In Living Color, right? And
Classic.
Jim, yeah, yeah, classic, right? For
yeah,
those that don't know, go out there and find out, right?
YouTube, folks.
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah. Jim Carrey, I forget the name of the character, but he played like this martial arts instructor, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Remember that
Yeah,
skit? Yep.
yeah, yeah. So, and he was saying he instructed everybody to come fight him, especially like the women. It seemed like it was more women in the class, but they had to come and fight him a certain way, right? And if they didn't, then that's when they got him, they poked him up, and he said, "No, no, 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 you're doing it incorrect. You got to be like this. You got to be like this, right?" And I think like a lot of times we kind of that's the kind of posture that we take is like, nah, you know what? You got to be like this in order for you to be a useful man, or in order for you to be a competent man, you got to show up like this, right? Uh, I couldn't help but to think of, I know of a couple of families, and again, it's relative. Again, is no cookie cutter approach. Again, what may work for one may look different for another, right? But I know of a couple of families where I know this one sister. She's a high ranking official within the school district here in the city of Philadelphia, and her husband is he's a electrician and a plumber, right, by trade. He has his own business, his own company. He makes good money. He has a high school diploma, right? And he, as far as like a quality dude, like from man to man, like he a good dude. He's a good quality dude, right? And he take care of his family. He's big on like helping out in community, and so she saw him. She didn't see his titles or his status. She saw like, hey, this is a man who's a leader, who has all of the qualities all of the characteristics that I'm looking for, right? And that's who she married. She didn't marry the position, the titles, the hey, do you fit my specific criteria and requirements, right? So I challenge us to do
Mm.
that. Now, as far as like men, as far as us, now one of the things I will believe, and myself included, right? Too many of us are living way below our potential, right? And I'm sharing from my own personal experience. I was living way below my potential. And that was my first when I really decided that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to let substances control my life anymore. I'm not going to let promiscuity control my life anymore. I'm not going to let porn control my life anymore. I'm not going to let like all these disruptions and distractions and detractors like disrupt my life anymore. I'm going to jump out fully. So that's and I'm going to man, yeah. I'm going to answer your question. To answer your question, 2 or 3 practices, practical things to do. One is very cliche. Jump out there. Just do it. Just do it. Call up like one of the things like Black Men Heal. Uh, it's a national organization. They provide 8 free counseling sessions to Black men and men of color. Go on to blackmenheal.org, sign up for free counseling, right? Get your free sessions, 8 free sessions, right? Just jump out there, just do it, right? That's one. And man, you know what? And because I'm struggling with self-disclosure, right? So, but I'm going to self-disclose, right? I hope this is a safe space, right? So,
It's a free space, brother.
yes.
Always. Yes.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, man, I was living below my potential, and one of the things, one of my kryptonites was alcohol, right? So, and I had a problem with alcohol, so I went to go see a therapist to address my alcohol issues and concerns, right? After years and years and years of living below my potential, and after years of mismanagement, years of just horrible existence, right? So I went to go see a therapist, and the therapist that and I signed up for this program at this center, and at the place it was the therapist they assigned me was this young white girl, right? And I was like, yo, she had to been like late 20s, right? Right, about late 20s. And I said to myself, I said, all right, I'm thinking like, you know what? I'm about to ask for another therapist. This strike one, right? So so I go in there, very timidly, I go into the office, I sat down. She was like, yeah, you know what, I don't have no issues with alcohol and this and that, blah, 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 right? So I'm thinking like, yo, you can't relate. So I'm thinking strike two, right? I'm about to go get another therapist, or I'm about to leave this whole therapy thing alone, right? But she did say like, yo, she opened up and said, hey, I had an eating disorder, right? And she was able to navigate that, and that led me to listen to her and to really open up to her. And I'm so glad that I did. In my opinion, she was an angel that the Most High sent, right, to me at that time. At that point, she was exactly what I needed, and she really opened my eyes, right? So point number 2 is get uncomfortable, let go of your ego and pride, right? Let go of ego and pride. There was something that I heard an old head say to me years ago, and I don't, I'm doing my best. I'm like 96% there, right? Like I don't curse, right? So stop cursing. But I heard an old head say to me, "You can't save face and save your anus at the same time. You got to pick and choose, right?" So I challenge men. I challenge us. Pick and choose, right?
uh,
Do you want to save face and look cool and look whatever, blah, blah, blah? Or do you want to save your life? And more importantly, save your soul, right? So that's 2. The third thing is, man, get community, get around, like again, and this is a shameless plug, right? Through Black Men Here, I have the honor of hosting King's Corner. We meet every week, every Sunday night from 7 to 8:30 via Zoom. If you go onto blackmenhill.org, find King's Corner, you can register for it. We meet every Sunday, and it's kings from all over the country. It's kings even from outside of the country, and we come together and we meet, and we are in a shared space. We are in an environment, a supportive environment, where it's not only is it safe, it's brave, right? and we really come together and we really ask the hard questions. We really deal with and address the hard issues. And matter of fact, I can't wait because John Graham, up our very own,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
yeah, Upfront's very own will
I'm gonna
be
be on
on
the
there.
corner.
Yes, we'll be on the corner as a guest host, right? But we really deal with the hard issues. So I would say those three things, man. Like, yo, just do it, jump into it, right? Let go of ego and pride, and then surround yourself with like-minded individuals.
That is gold. Gentlemen, that is your clarion call. Get out there and do it. Let go of your pride. Get community. Very simple, very practical. Not easy,
Not easy.
but it's very straightforward. And I don't think we shy away from the difficult. Some of us do, right? But that's the work. But let me go back. Let me honor and appreciate you for first naming your discomfort with self-disclosure and then self-disclosing. I think that was a great example of you being self-aware and being brave in the space to model and example the behaviors of healthy manhood and healthy humanhood. So I respect that. And yes, I am excited about my time and space on King's Corner coming up. Because look, there's very little spaces, right? We have the barbershop, but that's about it. That's about it. And shouts out to you for being a barber. I always say, man, bald-headed brothers with phenomenal beards are like the best barbers. Like, that's wild to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we the best therapists too. Yeah.
Listen. Look, my barber knows things that nobody else does.
Exactly.
You know, but I think we have so few spaces, to your point, as outlets. Find where you can and find community, and and go for it. So thank you for that, brother. Look,
I just want to touch on what you just said, right? Because,
please.
like I said, I've been in the barbershop. I worked as a barber. I've worked in manual labor. I've worked in factories, done like grunt work. I've worked in different spaces where it's like men, and we don't shy away, like how you said, like we don't shy necessarily away from the difficult, right? But for lack of better words, and I'm trying to find language for it, like we got to pick and we've allowed our difficult to be chosen for us, right? Or like, part of that too, like the difficult that we show up is in the most vulgar way, right? So
right.
because
But we haven't been given the language, though, right? Like we haven't been given that language to
but at the
express or
same
articulate
time,
that.
I'm gonna say this, right? At the same time, if you trying to chase and seek after some shorty, right, or or some draw, excuse my language, man, we're gonna go through hell and hot water, right? Right? In many cases,
Brothers will do things to get to the mountaintop. Yes.
look, or even to get a pair of sneakers, right? You're gonna go through all these different things, all these things. So we don't mind the difficulty when it comes to that. We don't mind the difficulty, but when it comes to being emotive, when it comes to like genuine healing, now we want to get all shy. Now we want to get, now we want to be fearful, right? There's also I'm a trainer and I do trainings and workshops and such, right? But in one of my workshops, I have this picture. You ever hear of a Equus Boss 770?
I haven't.
That's your homework assignment. That's everyone else's homework assignment, right?
Say less.
If you look up this car, it's a car, right? If you look up this car, it's based off a classic car, right? But it's entirely new concept, right? The starting base price of this car is a $250,000, $250,000. You see it, right? It's a very expensive car, right? So I bring this up in my trainings because I'm like, yo, how many of us would make sure that we take care of this car? We make sure, yo, you're using premium gas. You're not just letting anybody sit in here. Thank you. Yes. a beautiful looking car, right? Shout out to all the classic cars enthusiasts, right? It's an awesome car starting at $250,000. You're going to take care of this car. You're going to make sure this car stays in pristine condition, right? So why'd I bring it up? I bring it up because ain't you worth more than this car? Ain't your self-worth worth more than this car?
Yeah.
So why are we not taking care of ourselves more than we would this car?
That's bro, you got no excuse. You got no excuse. Listen,
No excuse.
I think at base level it comes down to what do you want
What do you want?
and what are you willing to do
What
to
are you
get it?
willing to do? And are you worth it? Do you see yourself as worth it?
And do you value yourself enough to
Do
get
you
it?
value yourself? And if
Right.
you don't, how can we get there?
That's right.
Because two things men need. We need identity and we need purpose.
Man, brother Alexander, I could talk to you for
Yes, sir.
hours. I feel like we only scratched the surface, man. But look, I got to be respectful of your time,
Yes,
brother.
sir.
You got more
Yes, sir.
good work to do out here in these
Yes, sir.
streets for brothers. How can people get a hold of you? How can they connect?
Yes. Yes. So, first of all, man, thank you again for bringing me on this platform. It's such an honor, such a great conversation. I'm looking forward to your time when we have you on King's Corner, right? So, thank you, King. Yeah. So you can get in touch with me on Instagram at Mr. E Bernard or at Transform and Thrive Solutions. Also, you can reach me on LinkedIn at E Bernard Alexander. You can reach me on Facebook at Bernard Alexander. Also on Twitter at Mr. E Bernard. You can my website transformandthrivesolutions.com. Yeah, please get in contact with me via email. EB Alexander at transformandthrivesolutions.com. Yes, I'm out here in these streets.
He's out here. He's out
Yes,
here. Look,
yes.
we'll make sure that we link a couple of those in the episode notes for
Yes,
sure. Brother, I appreciate your time, your energy, your commitment, your wisdom and your perspective, your vulnerability, as well as your vision for
sir.
Black men and what healing can be. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in this far. Be sure, if you haven't already, get over to upfront.love and sign up for early access. The early access program is launching very soon. We're looking forward to getting our members firsthand access in July. So get over to upfront.love. If you're not following us yet on IG or TikTok, we are at Just Be Upfront. But you can always tune back in here at YouTube, on YouTube, where we are bringing you more value-added conversations for brothers and sisters who are healing and seeking their forever person. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Be grateful. Be kind to yourself and others.
Yep.
Peace, peace, peace.
Peace.